Welcome, everyone, to another enlightening Ascension Wisdom Conversations. It is brought to you by Galactic Ascension Academy at SheilaTillich.com. Yes, this is the time to awaken and live your soul's mastery. I am a Galactic Grandmother, Sheila Tillich, and I invite you to relax and enjoy this time together as we discover our Ascension Wisdom Mastery. As souls, we have entered a higher dimensional reality as humans on planet Earth. This is the new energy consciousness. It has awakened our multidimensional spiritual DNA abilities, which are given to us by our galactic ancestors. Join me, dear ones, as we live at our soul's full potential, live in our wisdom mastery in this ascension time. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Ascension Wisdom, and my name is Sheila Tillich. I am very, very happy to be here, and I'm also happy to have another guest with me who has been here before, and his name is Adam Gell. Adam, welcome. Welcome.
Hi,
I,
Sheila.
I
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Yeah.
And Adam had come on before, and Adam is he's just multiple talents, but it's also about his own awakening. And he is an Akashic record healer, and he does many, many, many things. But when we talked before, we talked a little bit more about how he came about being this. But today we're going to have a little conversation about what does it mean to ascend, and what's going on with this crystalline grid and all the ley lines and this energy stuff and what does it mean, so we're going to just share and talk back and forth, have a little bit of a conversation about that. All right, Adam.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
we
Yes.
we as practitioners, I mean, I have seen the change in my body just from all the energy that's coming through now, the changes in the atmosphere. How are you resonating with it? Are you having any ascension symptoms or anything that's different that you can share or understand about
Yeah.
yourself?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I think for myself, for example, I've been motivated. I've been energetically motivated, and I've been on a higher level of mobility, both mentally and physically. And I have this higher sense of energy within me that I can feel. Um, there's waves of that, and then this past week I felt like not the letdown, but the overdrive coming to a pause for a moment, so that I needed a little bit of a break from it. But I definitely felt the symptoms of it. I can feel the ascension aspects in terms of the veil itself opening up a little bit and having a deeper insight into things when I'm around people or I'm by myself. I feel like the presence of other energies near me or around me. And so for me, I think this was over the last month or so, a month and a half to 2 months, I've been feeling that. It's lessened a bit right now, but certainly I was experiencing that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Me too. I definitely can understand where you're coming from because I've done the same thing. What I have noticed in myself, of course, is the more at peace. I'm not going through so many up and down like I was the last couple of years. And this year has been very calming for me and enlightening, especially since we've had, the total eclipse and, all the resonance of the earth been changing and things that are coming out in science showing us about this vibration, what's happening to us. And tomorrow is the 17th is actual full moon that we have. So that really connects with the energy. And then on the 22nd, we have the partial eclipse again. So it's not going to be like we had
Yeah.
before, but it really is showing it's coming and radiating more in all of our bodies in different symptoms, we call them ascension symptoms, but I call them ascension wisdom awakening of what's really happening here. And I get really excited about it. I don't know about you.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I think the important thing is it puts us in a state of individuality for us to be able to take ownership for our own energy and not allow it to expand or be affected by other people's presence. So in other words, coming from any type of codependent relationships, we're always intermingling our energies and putting them together so as to have a sense of security and peace. and
Right.
rather than taking ownership for our own sense of who we are on this plane. And what I've noticed is that it's it, we need to be alone. We need to sit alone, and we need to feel our own energies, rather than when we're anxious or having issues with with other people. We need to pull back and just be within our own space, and realize that we should be alone, and we need to be alone. Otherwise, we project, and we have the tendency to want to like rebound our emotions and feelings on someone else, and then we lose the whole process of the ascension symptoms that we're trying to benefit from
I
by
know.
sitting in our own power and sitting within ourselves. And so I don't think we would recognize it because we get so embedded with the company of someone else. And
Oh, yeah.
as we're speaking here, sitting here, I think the individuality and the solitude is an important aspect of this personal ascension, that we need to be able to feel what we feel and work through it. And I think that would help us
Yeah.
as we move forward.
Well, that's also, when I look at it, when I do transmissions and activations with the Star Mothers with my own community, and whether I'm working on somebody else or myself, is that I understand when you started talking about the codependency stuff and about our own being in our own responsibility, our own body, listening to stuff, but also what is actually happening here on a cellular level, as we go in and put the focus on ourselves and go and be quiet, we can feel things differently and we can see things differently about ourselves, about where we need to go in our lives. And then, of course, we know it affects everybody, but everybody else. But what is actually happening with these frequencies, when the full moons and the cycles of the moons, and then these eclipses come, and what is actually happening to the magnetic field of planet Earth. And, we talk a lot about issues in our tissues, being from IET, integrated energy therapy. But what it means is like, the old things that kept you stuck, and that has a lot to do with lineage line. And we talked about that too,
Right.
about this time as we go with inside, we have time to look at ourselves and make changes and move forward instead of always moving backwards. And I think that's what this ascension stuff is also helping us do, understand, is that we don't have to behave or act the way that we were programmed or how we learned to survive. Now we can go with inside and find what resonates with us. And a lot of it is the decoding of that old lineage imprints with that energy field.
Yeah,
Yeah. And when those solar
absolutely.
flares come in, that allows us, when we go into the private time, have time go inside your inner core, to be able to evaluate that stuff about ourselves, and get out of that codependency stuff and really get into our own power, who we are, as individuals. And of course, you and I both know, this ascension is about growth and why we're really here. And all the
Yeah.
things I know for me, all the things I've grown from and how much wisdom I have grown, and the stuff that was always there, but I never wanted to look at it. I never wanted to look at it.
Yes.
Now I want to look at it, and I'm realizing that I'm like shedding, like when we go through these different times and the cycles of the life, we shed things that no longer serve us. And what does that mean? What does that mean? So the decoding is letting go of that fear, letting go of that anger or the self-judgment of ourselves. First of all, be more
Yeah.
gentle
Yeah.
with ourselves. And then, of course, we know, when we be gentle with ourselves, we can be gentle with other people, have more of the compassion, and the love comes through. And that's part of us as light workers or awakened beings, understand with this energy. So,
Yeah.
any thoughts
Yeah.
on that?
I was thinking yeah, well, when you were saying something, something resonated with me in terms of when we do sit alone, or the necessity for us to be alone is for us to find our frequency. It's for us to find our own vibration, the one that really settles us, the one that's connected to our soul, as opposed to the one that we've been programmed to have
Exactly.
within our in our energy field.
Mhm.
The way we respond to other people, the way we've been taught to respond to other people, is not our true essence or not our true frequency. but it can be if a person's unwilling to ascend or to open up to the energies that are around us. And I think when we do sit alone, the vibration, our, like, when you do it, spin a top, it spins a certain way or has been affected by the energies around it. But when there's
Hmm.
no energies around it and you sit in that place, then eventually you find this, the spin or the free or the vibration that will put you in that place of who you are. And then you can gain the momentum and power of developing that inner core of saying, this is what I feel to be my truth. And this is the energy I feel at peace with. And there's so many variables outside the extraneous world, hitting at us in terms of the universal energies, the solar flares, the moon, the stars, the planets, all of
Yeah.
that have an impact on us. And but we're naturally impacted on this earth by relationships around us, the people around us. And so it's not battling, it's accepting the energies that come in and allowing them to come through rather than resisting. But I think many times people don't understand the energies and they become, puzzled by realizing that certain things are affecting them and the way they act, the way they feel, and the way they think. And I think you touched upon that.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And when we talk about those solar flares and things that are happening to us, the words are coming out there: light body and crystalline grid and crystallization bodies. What does that mean? A lot of people, have their own spin on it. What I like to do is when we go inside your true essence, what you just talked about, exactly. Going with inside who you really are as a soul and allowing that to come out and shine. And that is about raising our consciousness, being more aware of our connection to the higher energy, being connected to the light body frequency is like the flares that are coming in now that are actually changing the chemistry of our cells, and wakening them up. And when I was talking earlier about decoding, the stuff that no longer serves us, that we were programmed and in our lineage and how we survived and stuff. Now, when we sit in that present moment, we can touch in with that light body or that light source or the power of our essence within ourselves inside our body. And the light body is the expansion of the peace in the electromagnetic field around us. A lot of people know about the chakras. We know about the chakras. We also know
Yeah.
about the meridians of the body, the electromagnetics of the body, and how it affects our physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. But a lot of people don't understand it. But if we can just, really bring out what light body activation is, or what does it mean to have light codes come into you, downgrades and upgrades. And people talk about that all the time. They say, what is that? What is that? But it's really, I mean, for me, I try to explain it. It's like going with inside and feeling the warmth and the love inside, and that I have a different perspective. I look at things differently. I look at things more of a higher vibrational frequency of light. What can I do to help my fellow man? What can I do to change the world in a way that's very simple and not too complicated, you know? And that's what I always say, keep it simple. Always keep it simple. And a lot of people, we try to analyze it. And I think the analyzing comes a lot with our own, not understanding what light body is all about or the codes, what is, when those solar flares come in, they affect our frequencies of our bodies, right? And the
Right.
frequencies that expanding, when we talk about ascension wisdom, we're talking about picking up that frequency of more light and love, and then being able to radiate that light frequency out into everybody else. And I think that's what's, in society, this is a big changing timeline of our existence.
Yeah.
And when we talk about timelines, they say, what are you talking about? Timelines. Wouldn't you agree with that? People don't understand what the timelines are between the 3D and the 5D. And, what does that mean? Light bodies, those
Yeah.
codes.
Well, if I was going to bring into the fact that I think the fact that we are impacted by these light codes and these energies that are affecting us has brought us a deeper connection with certain people in our lives. In other words, it's brought it has resonated to other like-minded people, and your galactic family and the people who are from other places that you have
Hmm.
connections to. And I think that energy has, if we sit in it and don't run from it, like turbulence on an airplane, you have no choice but to go through it. You're
Right.
going to get rocked and shooken up a bit. You're still going straight ahead. You're not standing and stopping in it. You're moving. And I think if we take that approach through the energies that hit us, then we wind up realizing we're moving, but we're being hit, but we're still going, and we're hitting to expand ourselves. And for me, I know over the last month or I've connected to more like-minded people who share the same values because of, I think, their resonance opening up and shining through. And that's been inspiring for me because I feel a deeper connection to these people than, the people that we normally associate or have associated with on the earthly mindset.
Yeah.
And so for me, I think the light codes come in through different ways. I mean, people can communicate it through words, and people could communicate through inspiration, through creativity. I know I feel a deeper sense of creativity within myself over the last couple of months. I
Yeah.
like to take photos and do photography, and as we mentioned earlier, just like making little shorts that a download of information that will come through, and then
Yeah.
spit that out as soon as I get it. So for me, I think this timeline as we speak has been a very extraordinary, time. And I know for speaking with you and hearing the work you do, it cements the ideology of what people may not know, but the way you express it is understandable or
Yeah.
comprehensible.
Yeah. I try to keep it simple. It's like, your choices. What is your choices? Go down this road or go down that way, and a lot of people say, well, I don't want to go there because that's what's going to happen. Okay, so let's change it. And a lot of them don't want to change it. They don't want to change
Right.
their routine because then they don't know how to live because they've always followed the crowd type thing. But when you go inside and you say, okay, maybe I'm going to change something different, and then you have the opportunity to meet the like-minded people, to open up and say, hey, what about this? What about that? And you're not so stagnant, in your life. And then there's people that just adamantly they're not going to change, which is fine, and still you
Yeah.
can make the choice to, stay in the relationship or the frequency, whatever, the job, whatever, and do the same over and over again, expecting different results, as we talked about the definition of insanity. Or you can take a different perspective and look at things a little bit differently and say, well, maybe I might just go down that other road and try to look at these people. And it's really about respecting each other, respecting other people's point of view. Look at them as equals and not try to, the egotistical stuff come through, not try to show them that they're wrong and just listen to them, and then that's where you can
Yeah.
learn. And you can
Yeah.
make a decision. Well, okay, that's wonderful, but that doesn't resonate with me, or it does resonate with me, and it's
Right.
getting out of the box of how you've always done it. And is exactly what's happening with this ascension now, especially since COVID. People were forced to make different decisions. And it was ended up being a good thing because it allowed them to have that time to go within and make different choices. And a lot of them, have developed whole new lives because of it, besides the
Yeah.
workforce, but their own relationships with how they relate to the world, how they relate to people. And then that's
Yeah.
where, the love comes through, is that you might not like somebody, but you love them as a person because they have a soul and they're here trying to do the best they can with what they got, you know.
That's interesting concept. The two things I
Yeah.
just wanted to touch upon when you said timeline, it came to my
Yes.
mind.
Yeah.
Not everybody's on the same, not everybody's on the same timeline. Not everybody's in the same grade. So
Exactly. Exactly.
although we're born into the same age, it doesn't necessarily mean that everybody's at the same reading level or math level. And you can't force somebody to understand a computation that they didn't start yet. And so the frustrating part is to see people who you think are on your level because they may be, if you use the age as an example, right? Age and just using that, it would say, okay, you're the same age as me. But when we talk about, soul growth and intellectual and chronological, they're all different components. And plus, we all
Exactly.
choose the path we're going to go on when we enter and we incarnate into this world. And
Right.
so each child, right? Each child has a different path, and parents then always compare one child to the next and say, "Why aren't you doing like this? Why aren't you doing like that?" But when we look at our own individuality again, that's the important thing. I think when we go through stresses and traumas, in order for us to find our own path as adults, and then be the example, or then have at least the wisdom to impart that insight to look at children and people who aren't growing at the same level or same pace. So I mean, without the yin and the yang, or the dark and the light, and the informed and the uninformed, or the ones who are growing or not growing, there would be no friction. There would be no growth because everybody would be the same, and there would be nothing to compare to. So I think it's a necessity that we have this timeline where some people are growing and some people are comfortable where they're at, and they'll grow in this life or they'll grow in the next life and experience what they need to. So I think that's an important concept when it comes to timeline. Yeah,
I like that. I like that. So let's talk a little bit about 3D and 5D. So maybe some of our audience have never heard that before, or they have, and they say, what are people talking about when they say the 5D? What are they talking about 3D? About our 3D reality. So let's talk a little bit about that. Um, let's talk about how things was always done, you know, and like history. It's always going to do
yeah,
that. Well, that's the way it's going to be. But now we know that even though COVID was a bad thing, it ended up being a good thing in a way for
yeah,
many of us.
right.
But it's
Yes,
also brought things to light that needed to come out. And so when you
absolutely.
wake up and see, okay, I get it. And then the ones that are still living in the 3D, in other words, doing the same as they always learned and behaved and survived with, they can see things changing and then things being exposed, the dark being exposed as the light comes out and shows it. But it's part of our growth. It's part of our wisdom about us learning and
Yes,
growing as a society, and as a community of light beings. In other words, we're human, but we have a soul and we have an essence, and it's how you use your essence, whether you want to live in the light or live in the dark or bury your head underneath the sand and I don't care, type thing, or make a difference. Now, you've made a difference, a lot of
absolutely.
difference about your
Thank
own when you shared when you were on before, you talked about your own health issues and how this all started with your awakening process, your ascension time. You're ascending to a different frequency, and I loved how you shared, is that, other people suggested you to go to a healer, and that healer kind of opened up a whole new avenue for you. But also it was a part of you were ready to open up, and it's like you listened. You listen to the inside soul.
you. Yeah. I think we're all confronted with the dark night of the soul in some capacity, whether it
Exactly.
be medically, whether it be emotionally, um, whether it be just, a serendipitous moment, or synchronicities that take place. Luckily, some people hit a brick wall before they decide to change, and there are people who hit a brick wall and don't change. They don't have the opportunity to. And I think, for myself, speaking for myself, I think I was afforded the opportunity to manifest through those experiences, and to
Exactly.
look at the brighter side of how I can use this experience not to be a victim of circumstances, but to use it as an impetus for my own personal growth.
Exactly.
And I think when you remain open, as you mentioned before, and don't remain fixed and stuck, then you'll have the opportunity to have people come into your lives that shine a light and say, "Oh, that I see the blue light, I see the red light." You open your eyes as opposed to keeping your head down and wearing your glasses. So I was, I think I'm curious. I'm a curious person. I'm always looking to learn and seek. And so through that seeking and learning, I think, you attract those types of people in your life that give you insight into taking you to the next level. Some of us are comfortable being on the first floor of the apartment building. They don't want to go up too high. They don't want to take the elevator, metaphorically. But then metaphorically, it's also a matter of looking at things from a higher perspective and living on a different floor. And you can
Yeah.
always come back down again. But yeah, so for me, my experience really taught me about going higher and looking at things differently, even if I'd be alone in the process. And I think we all go through that emptiness of, with family, looking at one as different or not accepting because you're breaking the patterns that they want kept in place. And
Mhm.
I think, shedding your skin and dislodging yourself from the matrix, three-dimensional matrix of what we've all been told as a means of safety, of comfort, of familiarity. I think once we break free from that, we go to a higher level. And like they say, when you're on top of the mountain, you're alone, right? Not many people get to that top of the mountain, but there's a sense of accomplishment knowing you made it. You can also come back down if you choose. And so the people, or when you don't make that journey, you'll never know. And I think life is pushing us to make the journey. It's pushing us to break free from the third dimensional mindset. But each person again goes at their own pace, and each
Exactly.
person ascends at the pace that's necessary for them. And they may not have the physiological makeup or the chemical makeup at this point to do that, because
Hmm.
there are shifts and change in the body that take place. People either, go through physical changes, emotional changes, and they're not ready to handle it. And I think the universe gives us what we can take as long as we take advantage of the crumbs that we're given and we use it as a source of advancement. Yeah.
Absolutely. Definitely. I like the way you explain that, especially the different floors of the building and about the accomplishment about climbing that mountain, especially on the top. The accomplishment that you got up there and you did it, that you had, got out of the fear and did it anyway, even though it was fearful, but it was the accomplishment behind it. And then it also gives other people hope to be able to do the same thing, to live a more secure life and more happier life. Yeah. I love this ascension time and I love talking about ascension, and everybody has their own way of looking at it. What does it mean to be ascending? Of course, many of us that aren't thinking outside of the box, just thinking about, Jesus ascending and dying on the cross. And if that's what they mean by ascending. It's like we have such an opportunity to live a serene life and change so many things about humanity, especially about us as souls, and then where we're going to, and then also to be the pioneers and the wisdom keepers for the young ones that are coming up that don't have the guidance or don't have the understanding of their families. However, they feel gravitated towards us. They resonate with our frequency and our wisdom, and that's what I like about the ascension wisdom part. We all have wisdom. We all have journeys, that things that we have gone through, and the serendipity part of it, and how our lives are actually improved by it if we choose to look at it, if we choose to go down that other road, to look at things a little bit differently. And I love the young people like that. They're coming in like that with different minds. They have the mind to think, well, yeah, well, let's take a look at it a little bit differently. When they come from an environment that it's always been inside the box, and now they're
Yeah.
getting a taste of the world and saying, well, I want to think outside of the box, and what they encounter in their own environment, and then making the peace with everybody, and then kind of helping everybody move along, ascend, ascend.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's
cool.
very interesting with that. I mean, as a school teacher, I taught physical education for 30 years. And so for me, being around children, children really know what's going on. I mean,
Mhm.
it's society, and it's the matrix itself of the three-dimensional world that creates senses of a false sense satisfaction through television, through food, and through other means. And the child, and as adults, people become programmed and listen and fall victim to that.
Exactly.
And then when they try to break themselves free from it because they knew something or they know something, then they're shamed and placed back into that world even deeper. And so if a person doesn't have the willpower or the inner strength to break free, then they're stuck somewhat enslaved in that mindset.
Exactly.
And again, the enslavement is at the doing of the person's own individuality. Because as we know, since people can break free, that means that we have the freedom to choose to make that choice. But if we choose to stay enslaved, then it's because we're comfortable being there and not at the right time to maybe challenge oneself, or in this incarnation to be able to do it. So I think children definitely, I remember, I think Grant speaks about the Indigo Child. Um,
Yeah.
he spoke about
Well, he wrote the book on it. Lee Carroll did. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, right,
What
right.
it really
And
is all about. Yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah.
that's an interesting concept. I mean, I threw that term around a few times as a teacher in my mind, saying this kid's an indigo child. You could see the insight, you could see the light within the child, you could see that they're thinking out of the box in a different way, but then they're looked upon as different, and they're not part of the norm, so to speak, right?
Not
And
following, not following the crowd. They're not doing what they're supposed to do.
yeah,
They
I,
can't
I
be
worked in
controlled.
a right. I worked in a school a few years ago, and it's like an independent school, broke free after the COVID, after what took place.
Mhm.
And many of the children, I was doing drumming and shamanic work, and they said, "Oh, my uncle does that, or my mother does that," or so they knew this, and so they're coming into the world, a little bit ahead of some of the adults who are still stuck in what's comfortable. So
Exactly.
yeah, that definitely resonates, and it's definitely a truth to me, for sure.
Which, I recently had time, was able to have time with my granddaughter who's going to be 17. And she has no problem talking to me about all this stuff. And she started talking about 9/11, and she started talking about the towers, that she was in the towers, that she was one of those people that went into towers, and she knows it,
Wow.
and she has vivid memories of it. She doesn't have memories about her life before the towers, but she remembers the towers, and she remembers coming down, and she knew in this lifetime that she was in the towers. And that's what they come in with, the higher frequency, or more the 5D frequency, or a higher consciousness. So for our audience here, when we're talking about the indigo child, we're talking about the child that comes in with a higher spiritual frequency of knowing, of more wisdom, of doing different, or how we teach whatever is a certain way, and they're kind of bored from it because they're more advanced in their actual development, in their soul, in their spirit, and also in their DNA, their cellular structure. That has to do with the solar flares and the change of the magnetic field of the earth. So indigo children is about children that are different in a very good way, in a very good way. And then we as society have to go with the flow. How can we teach these children in a way that is good for them, not so much keep them in the box, keep them in the box. And I love that, how you talked, that the children, that your students, that they are aware of the drumming and the stuff that isn't normal, and normal, environment that we grew up in anyway,
Right,
and
right, right.
yeah. Um, and of course, I love to have the younger person take care of all my electronic stuff because I'm not very good at it, being a grandma and stuff like that. But I can laugh about it. And I love to pick their minds because they work so fast, and they can come up with stuff just like that, because their minds are wired differently than ours, you know.
Yes, yes,
So I
absolutely.
love
And
this conversation. Would you like to add anything else to it? This is really enlightening for me.
I would just say that I think this is it's like you said mentioned earlier. It's a great time to be alive. It's a challenging time to be alive. It's a time where we're on a crust, the precipice of change that you could see when the greatest resistance is happening. There's so much conflict going on in the world because the rug is being shooken from underneath us. And so
Mhm.
when that rug is shooken, the dirt and the dust starts to come up. and it starts to make people uncomfortable because they don't want to see that or feel that.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
I think this last 4 or 5 years have shooken the rug underneath us. And the people who have expected the dust to come up say, well, what did you expect? This is what's going to happen, and you have to deal with it. And some people say, no, do not touch the rug, do not move it. And I think the people know that now they are aware what's underneath the rug. It's been shooken. It's a matter of, can they keep it down or can it be cleaned up? And I think there are people like yourself and myself and people who are ascending and talking about these particular subjects. We're
Yeah.
trying to make people comfortable in dealing with the dirt that exists, and allowing them to know that there's a way of handling it in a way that it helps us evolve, but also helps the people and bridges like a gap or a ladder and helps people climb it so that they know that they have someone helping them up the ladder as opposed to pushing them down.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we're at, or that's the message I wanted to say.
That's wonderful. I love that. I love that, Adam. This has been a great time sharing again, and I'm sure we're going to do it again. Would you like to share with my audience how people can get a hold of you? Your
Yes,
email?
thank you.
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
my website is adamgelluniversalhealing.com. And you can reach me there. I have my YouTube channel, which is Adam Gell and Inspiring Minds, where I do interviews with people, similar to what Sheila's doing,
Mhm.
helping people evolve and shedding information or light on things that need to be exposed and brought to the surface so that we could, as you mentioned, ascend. And I want to thank you for the wisdom that you impart and having the opportunity to have met you and to be able to share with a like-minded person such as you. So thank you.
You are so welcome. You are so welcome. Okay, everybody. Thank you for joining us, and join us next time. And stay in the light. You're living your sovereignty of your light and not to fear, because you are divine. All right, everybody. Bye-bye. Are you ready to ascend to new heights of consciousness? Are you ready to live your Ascension Wisdom Mastery? Dive into the Galactic Ascension Academy, where cosmic wisdom meets spiritual evolution. Unlock premium courses with like-minded seekers. Join a community of awakened souls and experience monthly group healing sessions. Elevate your journey with Star Mother's activations, teachings, and meditations. Join the Galactic Ascension Academy today and awaken the Stardust DNA within you. The cosmic journey starts now.